I see you found our little hiding spot in the universe. Don't get too comfortable. This is a place where you will find those with an experience that's out of this world, or possibly deep within your life. I welcome you to the Oracles with James T.E.S.A. Lean forward and listen. We will pull you into a supernatural journey with guests from around the world, each one experiencing some of the most extraordinary phenomena this wee planet has to offer. I wish to invite you to support the program through the Oracles with JamesTyson.com Patreon link. For as little as $3 per month, you qualify for a free monthly psychic reading, a past life regression, and exclusive access to our filmed interviews. Don't lower your guard. That's just the beginning as we give back. When I have reached 2,222 members, we will be giving away monthly trips to supernatural hotspots and conferences across North America. Don't run. I can see you. With a limit of 4,500 Patreon supporters, you will want to get your passports ready, as every third month, we will include paranormal conferences and tours in Europe and Australia. I know you can hear me. Visit the Oracles with JamesTyson.com and click on the Patreon link. Where are you listening? That's the Patreon button at the Oracles with JamesTyson.com. Now, here are the Oracles with James T.E.S.A.
Thank you, Liam, you funny little alien you. And thank you, listener, for tuning into this episode of the Oracles with James T.E.S.A. I am James T.E.S.A., and today's guest is Ryan Stacey. He is a certified private investigator and CEO and founder of Blacklight Investigative and Surveillance Services and T.E.S.A, the Experiencer Support Association. And that's what we're going to be talking to about. He was the national chief investigator for MUFON Canada. Now, MUFON, if you don't know, is the Mutual UFO Network. It was founded in the United States and bounces around about 43 countries around the world. Now, T.E.S.A is something that derived from his work at MUFON. Now, MUFON, yes, has been around since 1969, probably about as old as Ryan is himself. It's probably older than Ryan. But Ryan found that being a chief investigator in Canada for MUFON and bringing in all the reports from people who've experienced things right across the country, he's found that that information going into the U.S., it kind of goes into a big black hole. Pun intended. The other thing is they raise a lot of money for MUFON, and they do in those 43 countries around the world, and it all goes to that one country where MUFON exists. I think their head office is head office, I think, was someplace in the eastern U.S., but they're located in Irvine, California. They're a nonprofit, but, you know, the management does take a cut, and it's a full-time job for them to juggle all the different information that comes in. And over his years working for MUFON, he identified a number of challenges recording information and processing it and actually getting back to the client or the experiencer, and found himself butting heads with management of this nonprofit, the MUFON managers. Unfortunately, they didn't take his advice, and something that occurred or got set up in 1969, and eventually manuals on how to do things started being made, and nobody wants to divert from those manuals. And like I say, one person's conspiracy is another person's policy. So is there a conspiracy at MUFON to keep information from the experiencers who are actually experiencing it, and then charging them for books on what's going on, and newsletters and fees and all sorts of things? Or is it just policy, and nobody's willing to change policy because it was the way it's always been done? It's been done this way, was done this way before I got here, and I'm not going to move from it. And then again, he's also found things where nobody's really paying attention to the policy. So it all depends who's reading the book and who's in charge in any given year. So what Ryan did is he went off and he started the Experiencer Support Association, or T.E.S.A. And if you want to check that website out, go to TESACAN.org. That's TESACAN.org. He's considered a expert, as much of an expert as you can be in UFO and paranormal field. Now, that term gets thrown around a lot, but an expert, and this is going back from the Canadian courts version of when I got declared an expert, you get challenged when you become an expert. And if you say you're an expert in something, it's usually something that you don't want to say yourself. You've been determined to be an expert, and someone else, in my case, the courts, determined I was an expert in whatever field that I'm not going to get into. But they challenge you, and when the judge decides, yeah, that guy can be an expert, that guy can be an expert, but the expert only is an expert to give an opinion, from his knowledge that could be a little more advanced than the general public. So in that case, if Ryan's going to give us his opinion on what he believes and what he's doing and things like that based on his years of experience, yeah, okay. If I'll give him that, he can be the person who can give that opinion. Yeah, he's been featured on television. He lectured at major conferences across Canada, and is writing his first book called Believe, an investigative study building a bridge between the borders of paranormal and extraterrestrial phenomena. And that's what's really cool about T.E.S.A. It's not the new a new version of MUFON. It is basically an overreach, not really an overreach, an encompassing location where not only UFO reports can come in, but other paranormal and cryptozoological reports, or all paranormal supernatural reports can come in. So if you've seen a Bigfoot, you can go on his website, the T.E.S.A. website, and fill out the reporting go to reporting system and fill it out, send it in, and that information gets processed, and they will actually get back to you. Ryan himself will probably get back to you right now as we expand into building up some more support and more groups like they have for MUFON. Again, this is a very new thing. And there's more information coming out on June 1st this year, where he's going to be kind of opening the floodgates and getting everybody to sign up, or anybody who's interested who wants to start their own chapter, or what I called, I think we're going to go for detachment, wherever you are in the world. And, it's basically a sanitized, cleaned up, a little better working MUFON. And I'm sure the MUFON people are going to be really impressed when I said that. But that's what it's going to be. They're going to be able to get back to you. It's not like, if any of you out there have ever filled out a MUFON report and handed it in and wondered what happened to it. Yeah, welcome to the club, because they probably won't ever get back to you unless it's something flashy and they can send a TV crew out and make some money off of it. But that's few and far between. Most of the stuff that they will do on a TV kind of basis is the stuff that happened from, reenactments from the 1940s, 1950s, and 60s. But so be it. They've got to make money because they have to pay their muckety mucks and keep the machine moving. So that's what happens with them. So they probably don't get back to you as a client, or where that's a big thing with T.E.S.A. And we're going to talk to him about that. He's been a private investigator for about 10 years now, and he does run into a lot of very neat things. He actually does investigations in regards to paranormal. Over and above, the business side, he's actually a pretty skookum with a camera and a recording device, and he is a skeptic. So you've really got to, stand on his chest and look at him and say, no, this is this is an alien, and look what's going on. And he's going to ask you 1,000 questions, whether you're holding it up in front of him or not. So he's going to drill down to it. He's pretty analytical, which is why I get along with him well. Not that I'm analytical. I'm analytical, but not to the point of that Ryan is. So I want you to welcome Ryan Stacey. And again, please play along at home with us at T.E.S.A.can.org. Again, that's T.E.S.A.can.org. And you can also look him up on Facebook. It'll be Ryan Stacey or the Experiencer Support Association. If you can find that, I think it's a closed or private group at this time, but it's going to pop open, and you're going to be surprised. He's got a number of people working with him. He's got Leslie Mitchell-Clark. She's a consulting hypnotherapist and past life regressionist. Wes Roberts, experiencer, guide, and mentor. Cinematographers, UAV pilot, Stephen Coffey. These are people that kind of work with him and support his work out in Ontario and Canada. If you're confused on which Ontario it is, it's not the small city with the airport in California. It's a large province about the size of the eastern seaboard of the U.S., plus or minus, probably plus a few thousand square miles. But, yeah, they're out in Ontario. I'm on the other side of the country, on the other side of the continent, out here in Cascadia. And if you don't know what Cascadia is, there's something you can go and look up in the Google net. Hey, Ryan, how you been?
I've been good. How are you?
I am relatively good. I am getting ready for a trip down to McMinnville, Oregon for the UFO Festival. You know, they'll throw me out if I say that, because I am staying in I'm staying in a haunted hotel down the road in the Forest Grove. Used to be an old,
nice.
Yeah, an old lodge for young guys who were getting into trouble, and then old folks, all connected to the Masons and stuff like that. Not the family, but the organization. So we'll see how spooky that is. And it should be a good time. I've never been to the UFO Festival in McMinnville before. It's been going on, I guess, 18-some years, so it should be a lot of fun. So that's what I'm looking forward to later in the week. How about you, though? You, young man, and your MUFON to T.E.S.A, which is the Experiencer Support Association. And for those of you who want to follow along at home, like I've said, go to his website, T.E.S.A.can.org. That's TESACAN.org, or you can go to Ryan Stacey's Facebook page and link up through there. It's kind of interesting what you've done. Tell my listener what got you into kind of moving away from MUFON and starting T.E.S.A.
Well, I will start by saying I'm still part of MUFON. I am the National Chief Investigator for the country of Canada. I still am responsible for training and assigning cases and taking cases. What I've done recently, though, is I've stepped down from promoting the organization. So I'm not the provincial director for Ontario anymore, which means I just don't create the chapter meetings. I'll still attend the chapter meetings. I'll still visit, and I'll still support MUFON here and there. But I just couldn't, I guess, promote something that I've been working really, really hard to change in the last 4 years. MUFON Canada, by the way, they're great. It's just unfortunately the way the headquarters runs, we get very minimal support, and I've kind of had enough. I try to make changes, and I try to find solutions to create revenue for field investigators and whatnot, and it all fell on deaf ears. And So what T.E.S.A actually is what I wanted to do for MUFON when I was the director of training for National. So I had a bunch of ideas that I thought would change MUFON for the better, in my opinion, of course. Not everyone shares my opinion, and it's really hard to bring paranormal to the table, even though it's done in a scientific way, or at least attempting to do. So in a nutshell, what T.E.S.A is it's by MUFON's own demise, because I offered it to them and they didn't want it. It's kind of the equivalent of Blockbuster not buying Netflix, you know? It's one of those things. So having said that, what T.E.S.A is. So the T.E.S.A is the Experiencer Support Association. And the blurbage that I have on the website, I'll just read that. Excuse me. It's welcome to the world's first high strangeness UFO/paranormal hybrid investigation and research association. So there's a lot of key words there. T.E.S.A investigates all items belonging to the global phenomenon of highly strange and foreign experiences which carry many implications of the existence of intelligence other than their own. T.E.S.A provides raw, unbiased data volunteered and collected from those experiencing this phenomenon with a global effort in providing trends and characteristics that will help narrow down our research and directly focus where to look. T.E.S.A filters the difference between fact and fiction with every intent to bridge the connection between UFO and paranormal phenomenon. So we acknowledge that everything T.E.S.A delivers cannot be done if not for the courage displayed by each and every one of you. And for this, we thank you. Welcome home. So that, in a nutshell, is what T.E.S.A is.
Well, that's very cool. And I can see a lot of times where there are groups, international groups, that like the head office is in another country. That country can kind of push everybody else off to the side because, especially when people start perceiving their country as the only one that exists in the planet and has experience. Well,
and that is the impression that I get too. As I say, I'm still with MUFON Canada, and I can't promote the membership because the funds go to the United States and they don't come back to Canada. Yeah, so it is silly. But I mean, there's a lot of us who spend a lot of money of our own time invested in that. And then I what's called a joint venture agreement. I sent that to Jan Harzan himself. And I highlighted everything that T.E.S.A was going to do. And in exchange, what I wanted while I promoted MUFON was just 15% of the field investigator manual so I can dump it back into MUFON Canada's pot to donate and give to our field investigators who are volunteering their time. It was basically a business deal, right?
Yeah.
And that was turned down because the word paranormal or perhaps other reasons. But I'm moving forward with it no matter what because I created it. I gave them the ideas. When I resigned from national director, it was mainly because these problems arise and I had solutions to fix them and nobody was listening because it altered membership. So I left that, and then at the same time, without mentioning any names, one of those brilliant ideas that I had was stolen from me, used. So I created T.E.S.A quickly to get all my ideas out there first, so that way the rest of them wouldn't be taken from me.
Right.
And so then T.E.S.A has been kind of sitting there as a placeholder for the last few months, just long enough for people to get used to the name, see what the word is, check with their lawyers, check for conflict of interest, test the waters and all that other stuff. And then when I was finally ready to build and launch it, as I said, I made a joint venture agreement, a partnership with Jan for MUFON Canada, MUFON HQ and T.E.S.A to work together, and he denied and declined. So
probably
can't say I didn't try.
Yeah. Oh, we can't work with you because you're not giving us as much money as you used to be. Yeah, it's awkward. And I like how you say you don't want to mention any names because I'm the guy who goes, no, it was Bob that stole my stuff. And this is his address and go get it back. But you're being very diplomatic.
There's no point because they'll say I didn't and blah, 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 blah. So the point I'm making is instead of fighting it, I rose above and I just created it. This is mine and my idea, and you're not taking that from me. You've already taken everything else from us. But anyways, it's flattering too, though, because, it must have been a good idea, right?
Yeah, exactly. Theft is the form. No, that's not right. Theft is
imitation or something.
Yeah, imitation. Yeah. But theft. You include theft in that. Your background. You're actually a private investigator, and you do a lot of surveillance, and you work for a place called Blacklight Investigative and Surveillance Services. So. As well, and T.E.S.A. So you're familiar with the documentation and analysis of data that you bring in, which a lot of the people, and I've run into a lot of MUFON members in the past down in the U.S. at the various events and conferences I go to. A lot of them don't have a investigative background or look at things with an analytical eye.
So there are a few that do.
Mm-hmm.
In the structure, there's, again, like MUFON's focus is membership. They're driven on membership. So, they can't be too picky, because if someone's willing to buy the manual, then they're going to allow it, right? I do know of some seasoned police officers that do good work, but they've dropped off because they see that the protocols aren't followed, or there's a different way of doing it, and all this other stuff. Being an investigator since 2009, I also teach the private investigating course here through my company, Blacklight. So when I made my proposal with Jan and all these changes as the director of training, I took that seriously. And instead of saying, hey, this stuff is shit, here's an easier way, here's a more efficient way to do what you're doing. Or, hey, your people aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing in this book. How come? These are the rules of the game, and no one's following them, right? And then instead of arguing it, provided solutions. And then when those solutions were ignored, then I was saying, then I'm like, well, what's the problem, right? Like, I fixed it for you, and you're still not using it. So then what happened there is just made me think, like, well, okay, well, there's obviously something else I'm missing, something else going on that I'm not privileged to do. And you know what? A lot of people have quit MUFON because of that stuff. And I tell you, it's easier to quit MUFON than it is to stay with them. Yeah. And the reason why I'm staying with them is because I do good work here in Canada. Until there's someone else who's willing to take the mantle from me, like, I'm not stepping down. They'll have to pry it from my cold dead fingers, because I need to secure the data. I need to make sure that it's done right. I don't have control of that in the U.S., but I have control of that here. Since I made my announcement with the joint venture agreement, of course, Mark St. Germain, which is the national director of MUFON, he's now aware of what I plan to do with T.E.S.A, and it's just one of those kind of like, yeah, we'll continue to do whatever you want to do, just as long as it's not a conflict of interest. Wow. Define conflict of interest on the subject that no one's definitively proven to be in existence, right? There will never be a conflict of interest. The only conflict I see is money, right?
Yeah.
So the big difference between MUFON and T.E.S.A is, and the MUFON on the whole, is that we rely on the experience more than we do the donations. So we actually have what's called a contribution. So if you like what we're doing, give us a little bit of money to say thanks for what you're doing, to encourage us to push us forward. But if you don't donate anything, we're still doing it. I have a big problem, and I've always had a big problem with charging for information, especially when we can't confirm it, especially when the organization doesn't have a quality control on how people investigate. They just take the stories and they got good pictures and then they run with it, and they give no credit to the experiencer. They give credit to the field investigator, but not the experiencer. If it wasn't for the experiencer, we wouldn't have that story. Right?
Okay. Let me jump in there. You brought something up just a second ago that I was quite amazed with. Does MUFON actually charge people money to get information from them? I may have misinterpreted what you said, but it sounded like
so like the MUFON Journal. Okay, so the journal is comprised of interesting cases that happen within the organization that get reported to us, right? Mm-hmm. So you have to purchase a subscription to the journal, which is, most people do that. So it's a way to earn donations.
Yeah.
There's membership fees. You got to pay to go to symposiums and things like that. Well, symposiums are different. You got to pay the speakers, so that makes sense to pay those costs. But, you got to pay for the membership if you want access to the newsletter. And access to the information on TV, right? So, like, it's a good idea. But I mean, for me, the philosophy seems more focused on mainstream media. So the attention is which leaves a lot of room for propaganda, a lot of room for lies, a lot of room for massage data, just because they're trying to convince people to purchase. With what I do and everything else, it's pretty, with T.E.S.A, it's pretty raw because it's the truth. It's not polished. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I'll investigate a case and I'll dig and dig and dig and dig and dig, and then it turns out there was nothing. Well, to me, I would rather see a good thorough case and turn up with nothing than, spruce it up for the TV, right?
One of the things that I was kind of concerned with MUFON is that a lot of people could just kind of sign up and get out there and maybe write an article or two. And I've always been concerned that they've had those Philip Klass kind of people. Remember Philip Klass, the guy who
A debunker?
Yeah, the debunker who offered Travis Walton, some of the guys, $10,000 if they would just say, no, it didn't happen. And then eventually it came out that he was kind of a CIA-supported operative to debunk things for money. You know, I always considered a public group like MUFON, you get people like that assigned to it. They're monkeying with data, or they're throwing a monkey wrench in the whole system itself.
Well, it's definitely possible. MUFON's coming up on their 50th year anniversary, so they've had 50 years of planning this and 50 more years to come, right? So they also, like, their tax record from last year is $500,000. And those proceeds go towards the marketing and all that other stuff. MUFON Canada doesn't see any of that. That's not a bad thing. With any job, when there's money involved, desperation can be at place too, right? So people will do whatever they need to do to continue the income. Not saying that's what he does, I'm not saying that's, but I'm just saying it's a possibility. So in comparison to T.E.S.A, my paid job is my private investigating company. I have a hard time donating to any charities because I don't know where the money's going. MUFON is an example of that. People have different opinions, but I pay my dues like everyone else, and there's no appreciation for it. So I don't do it for the appreciation. I do it for the data because I have access to it, right? Yeah. But I'm not dependent on it. Also, I don't like to put money into project that I can't see the results of. So having said that, I use my company funds to dump into T.E.S.A as a collective because I can see the value in that, right? I don't make money. So I'm spending my earnings through T.E.S.A to encourage and do the hobby that I like, and at the same time, there's no monetary value at stake.
Really?
Competition is never bad. Healthy competition is good. If anything, they'll teach them to pull their socks up because they know what I'm capable of doing, and they know what I know, and they know I haven't exposed it. So instead of me talking about it, I'm just doing it. I'm doing things that I think should be done in the way that it should be done. And if they continue moving in the way that they're moving, then either I'm wrong or they're wrong, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. This is just because I think it should be different doesn't mean I'm right.
Yeah, if you're just joining us, we're talking to Ryan Stacey. He is the guy. He started the Experiencer Support Association, T.E.S.A, and you can go follow that website, T.E.S.A, T.E.S.A.C.A.N, that's TESSAcan.org, and you can always follow him on Facebook. Just check out Ryan Stacey. Also, you can go there and the Experiencer Support Association, too, if you want to bounce around. Ryan, since you started T.E.S.A up, what type of activity have you guys been doing, or have you got it up that level yet, where you're?
Well, it's going at a fast rate. I have to. Well, it's just a new name too, right? So I don't like MUFON is good. MUFON is great for UFOs. I still support the adding it to the database because there are diehards, there are good investigators on the team, right? So when I say bad things about MUFON, I'm talking about the business, right? But the volunteers and the network that does all the for them to receive the money, those are the ones that need to be appreciated, right?
Right.
There are a lot of people in my network who have worked have quit for opinions similar to mine and all these other things. And as I said, it's a lot easier to quit than it is to stay with it. And the reason why I'm staying with it is because you can't change something on the outside, you can change it from the inside. Yeah. So I'm hoping that if I do this nobly the way that I'm doing it, the waters are murky, it's going to piss people off, but hasn't pissed them off to the point that they've kicked me out yet, right? And I'm not willing to go, and I'm not doing a lesser job than I've already done. Yeah. Right? So I'm basically leaving it in their hands to decide whether or not what everyone says is true. Right? Because they can can me, and then it just proves I'm right. Or they can keep me where I'm at, and everybody wins. Right?
Keep you where you're at, yeah. And watch you, monitor you closely.
Well, yeah. Right. So it's kind of like. Just proves I'm right?
Ryan, in the last few years, and speaking on a Canadian, kind of the Canadian view of things, have we got a lot more reports in Canada than we had, like, say, 10 years ago? Or are they starting to increase? Or And could it be? Just
are we talking UFO reports?
Yeah, UFOs.
Yeah, they are increasing. Another thing too with T.E.S.A is T.E.S.A's designed to investigate everything. So, like, I've investigated UFOs, over 700 cases from MUFON Canada. Like, I'm tired of looking at light refractions and things like that too. I want to get into the nitty gritty, the big stuff, the good stuff, the stuff that MUFON won't take.
Hey, Ryan, could you just hold tight there for a sec? And what you were just saying was about that you're getting, like, basically you're tired of, and then you went into it. You, like, totally faded away. It was just all, yeah. So if you just start again, basically, actually, I'll ask the question again. Ryan, do you think that over the last few years, we've got an increase in UFO sightings in Canada? And what do you think that could be based on?
I do think we do have more cases over the years. The truth, like, I can only go about MUFON Canada data. The big increase right now is within Ontario and Quebec, and that's mainly because those are where the largest teams are. That's where we do the chapter meetings. That's where we do the symposiums. So we have the largest market in Ontario and Quebec. Everywhere else in Canada, not so much. Mm-hmm. I am seeing an increase in Ontario cases and Quebec cases collectively, because that's where our market is.
And those are the two largest populated provinces in Canada too.
Right, because there's MUFON Quebec, and there's also MUFON Canada, and now MUFON Quebec has merged to MUFON Canada. But yet, there's still mainly MUFON Quebec, and then there's the rest of us. So that's another thing too, is being the position that I am with MUFON Canada, I'm restricted to certain geographical areas. As the national director of MUFON Canada, I get to see all these cases within the place, but I don't get to investigate them all as well as I would like to. Plus, not everything gets, like, it's just strictly UFOs and alien abductions.
Yeah, and
so when I design. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, yeah, you're about to say when you design T.E.S.A, you expand into all paranormal or all what is believed supernatural kind of experiences.
Yeah, so just high stages, anything high stages. So I wanted to collect a database that. And the idea was that MUFON is good for UFOs, and that's what they do. So there's no competition. Now, can we investigate UFOs? Of course we can, but that's not the current mission. The current mission is just basically getting people to report. Right? I want people to report. If they decide to report a UFO to T.E.S.A, we'll investigate it. Right? But if you're listening to this, report to MUFON, right? Like, 'cause that's what they're designed for. That's what they've been doing for the last 50 years. Either way, if you report to MUFON Canada or T.E.S.A, you'll get me as the investigator to take care of that or look into it for you. But again, I wanted to have an inclusive investigative report. So I guess the best way to describe that, I guess, is to look at the reporting system. So if you want to click on the reporting system. Now, here's the other thing, too. When I was working upstairs there for HQ, and that's figuratively, not literally, the CMS has always had issues for me and has solutions and problems with that fix. Since then, they've done some tremendous updates and upgrades, and the CMS is actually doing well. Using that one idea we stole from them, but then it's there. It's improving, right? But from a field investigator point of view, I spend a lot of time as an investigator reaching out to the witness, trying to get more information. So as a field investigator from MUFON, the first thing that I have to do is contact the witness and say, hey, thank you for your report. I need this and this and this and that to do a proper investigation. And by this and this and that means a location, means a place, means details, a picture, like all this descriptive stuff. So when a report comes in, I send that email out, but 9 times out of 10, I don't get a response. And because I don't get a response, I have to either close it as information only or insufficient data, because there's not enough information to actually investigate. So there's a lot of wasted hours on contacting people because they're not filling out the forms properly. And one of the suggestions that I had was to make the fields mandatory. And of course there was like, well, we want people to report. We don't want to discourage them. I agree. You don't want to discourage them, right? Some people would want to report anonymously, which you can do with T.E.S.A. But the way I designed T.E.S.A as a reporting system is to fix all these problems right from the get-go. So if somebody doesn't want to report, they don't have to, right? But the people that do report, when they do report, I got one hell of an information package, and I can dig and investigate for days. So I can deliver a much better product in terms of an investigation because I have all the information right there. And it doesn't matter if the witness isn't responsive to my email because I can do my work. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's an easy for somebody to take it and look at it and go, okay, these are the things I can follow up on. So I found it actually a really, really good way of reporting.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, really, it is based on the flaws I saw that I believe needed to be fixed to make my job easier. So my passion, is to investigate. And I'm doing a lot of work and a lot of unnecessary work that I just created in an easier and simpler way. So basically, when you're done the report, you know what it is yourself.
Now, here's something I'm going to run by you. I have been asked to host a number of paranormal documentaries. And one of them that's coming out soon, I think it's called Bigfoot Girl, because they wanted a...
Yeah, I saw your preview for that. That looks cool.
Yeah, they went to Bigfoot Girl because the people who were supporting all the documentaries for the guy filming him, because we need a woman in charge. I went, oh, crap, okay. So we have to film something where I'm passing it over to the girl that will be doing them from now on, and the Bigfoot side of things. But it was fun, and we did get some prints, and there was a lot of stuff involved. Plus, I hosted a couple of we're in the prelim stage right now of not events, but investigations of ghosts in pubs and things like that, where we actually got information and we got data. Would you want me to report that stuff too?
Of course. So reporting is one thing. So the reporting is mainly what MUFON's focus is. That their drive is you report to the system. And the reason why I have a reporting system is so you have an alternate place to report, right? If you want to continue to report to UFOs, it's still done the same way because I'm investigating the same way. Now, that is MUFON in a nutshell. Everything else that T.E.S.A does is different. So once we get the report, that information I put into a table, a data set. So what I'm doing is I'm keeping trends of all these characteristics. The reason why I ask specific questions as to characteristics. So once I get the information, put it into a data report, we'll be able to go and put boots on the ground and actually do some digging. And I don't know what locations those are going to be. I don't know what reports are going to be there. But the idea, again, is to go to one location that has multiple reports of Bigfoot, UFOs, ghost apparitions, everything all in one hotspot, right? Kind of like Skinwalker Ranch. But and for me as an investigator, it's hard for me to take the information that I'm seeing on social media all the time that you have to pay for as being actually true. So as an investigator, I want to go out and investigate for myself because I'm still skeptic, but I'm still willing to do it, right? So this is kind of part of that. Every person that makes a report has the opportunity to be referred to our support team. So that's the main thing that T.E.S.A is once we get the information, my job then is to, while I'm investigating it, is determine what type of support the experiencer needs. So the reason why it's called the Experiencer Support Association is because that's where we're focused. So again, talking about the data and the information is just an easy thing to compare MUFON to T.E.S.A. But that's all MUFON really does is takes the information and that's it. Whereas I've always had issues not having a solution or not having answers or not being able to cure symptoms like post-traumatic stress or anxiety, from people that are making these claims. So it doesn't matter what the scenario is. So basically, the way we have the support system set up is we have Leslie Mitchell-Clark. She's a consulting hypnotist and a past life regressionist. We have Wes Roberts, who's an experiencer, and he puts himself out there as a guide and mentor for those who are experiencers. I have my wife there, Priscilla. She's a Reiki master, spiritual advisor. So the idea here is once I've done an investigation and I'm able to see these identifiers that I would notice in the private investigating world or in the criminology world, I do make referrals. And after I make that referral, it's to treat the symptoms. So that doesn't mean that you were abducted by aliens, but there's evidence that you were suffering from some sort of stress, and instead of ignoring that, we're treating it or trying to help with it by using these pseudosciences that aren't accepted by mainstream medicine, right? And at the same time, that becomes a secondary report. So I do my investigation. I make a referral to, say, Leslie for a hypnotherapist, right? She doesn't know what the report is. She just goes and does her thing, and then she gives me a report back, and she tells me her findings. I cross-examine her findings with my findings, and then we do a collaborative report together, and then we determine whether or not this person may or may not be an experiencer. And at the end, we leave the experiencer feeling a sense of relief or validation. It's not that we don't believe you. We believe you. We believe that there is something happening, and the government's not going to tell us, so we have to investigate it ourselves. But I'm more interested in the people that are affected, the people that are violated, the people that are experiencing. Like, why do some people see things and other people don't? So there's research there that I'm looking into doing, right? It's hard to explain. You have to see it. On July 1st, or so June 1st, you're gonna see a full idea of the master plan. But the goal here is to study the phenomenon as a whole and explain it in such a way that it's easy for the simplest learner to comprehend and to understand. And on top of that, I guess I can say that we do. T.E.S.A is planning on doing a symposium of our own, and what we plan to do is have some workshops where members of the public can come in and experience Reiki or hypnotherapist and do reports live on the spot. But one of the main things that I want to focus on, two main things actually. One is an experiencer march, have a kind of a peaceful protest per se. And another thing that's going to be a main, huge passion of mine that's going to come forward is I'm going to put out a series of videos on how to properly collect information. With my work with MUFON, majority of the time these cases cannot be investigated properly because people do not understand basic cameras. They don't understand that zooming in ruins the image. They don't understand that light refractions, how they happen. There's a whole bunch of hysteria around that. So what I'm planning on doing is I'm going to educate as much people as possible so that the reports that do come in are the good ones. It's not operational yet, but sometime at the end of the summer, T.E.S.A will have a 24-hour dispatch where you could actually call us when it happens, and we will tell you on the spot how to collect that evidence safely and securely so that way we can properly investigate it, or so you could keep it and maintain it, right? When you do the reporting system, too, I'll ask you if you have evidence, but I don't ask you to upload the evidence. So which forces me to call you and talk to you and convince you to turn over the evidence. So you can make a report and hold on to your stuff because that's kind of like collateral, right? Whereas MUFON just says upload your stuff and then they don't call you. What happens, right? Where'd my stuff go? We don't know. So it's...
Yeah, it's awkward. If you make one report and it goes out into the ether and you never hear anything back, what motivates you to make another report?
Right. So again, right now I have a bunch of pending cases that I haven't been able to get to yet, but that's because I've been putting out the fires or I guess tying up my loose ends with MUFON so that way they can run smoothly without me. Mm-hmm. And then I'll just be back to assigning cases and just being a regular field investigator for them. We'll be diving into T.E.S.A full bore within the next week or so.
Good.
And then, yeah.
Hey, I was going to buy one of your T-shirts. And it doesn't. Do they only come in one size?
So let me look here. So the merchandise, does it say one size?
No, it doesn't give you a choice of sizes.
Oh no.
Anyway, just throw that out. But I'm still buying a bunch of stickers, just so you know. It's like I was going to do that, but I went, I thought you were going to throw in a shirt. Oh, no, I can't.
Well, you can just tell me what shirt. I can find it.
I will off air.
So there's another thing. There's another thing too. How about, hold on, save on the shirt here. So there is a plan in place that will also be announced on June 1st. All right. So for those of you guys who are listening, it kind of sounds like I'm doing a magic trick with no finale here, but like I'm withholding information purposely because once I announce everything on June 1st, MUFON Mike just give me the boat. So, and so we'll see, right? I hope not, but we'll see. Having said that, there is a plan and a movement in place to create chapter meetings, for T.E.S.A. And with that, there is a beautiful package that the person who wants to start a chapter meeting will get. And that includes, at a minimum, that T-shirt that you want to get.
Yes.
So if you want to start a chapter out where you are, and then I will send you one of those T-shirts as a thank you for doing what you're doing.
Well, yeah, and that's what I was going to talk to you about that off air. I was going to offer I was definitely going to sponsor you. Let's see, I've already thrown in a couple of bucks a month to support, $20 a month to support. And I've wanted to...
Where have you done that?
On the website. You go down under sponsors, there's a little thing that says, I think. There's a support.
Yeah.
Yeah, so anyway, I did that.
Does it actually work? Because bank account's been empty, so you're officially one of the founding members. There you go.
Yeah.
Well, thanks.
So you're drawing $20 a month off of the Oracles with James Tyson and my fancy Oracles credit card.
Well, then what we'll have to do is put you on the sponsors page now.
Well, yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. I wanted to get the sponsors page, and then I was going to ask you about doing a chapter in British Columbia here because I have experiencers, communicators. I have psychics who have been dealing with ETs, ghosts. Right. I've got past life regressionists.
And basically the way you might as well say a bit of it now. The way that we're going to do it is and you can compare it to how MUFON does theirs, but the pay structure is basically going to be pay what you can, take what you need. And what that basically means is nothing is for free, but I mean, if you have it, give it. If you don't, but still show up.
Yeah.
Still come, still talk. Right. And so pay what you can. So that's the admission. So if nobody wants to show up and says, I got no money, that's fine. Come on in. Yeah. Right. And I don't ever want to shut anyone down from the door.
Correct.
Because they don't have the set fee, for something we can't guarantee. The other thing too, the currency that you as the director of that chapter would be responsible for giving is reports. So the reporting system is actually mobile friendly. You pull out your cell phone. It's so designed that you can interview the person live at your group as a report comes in, and you can answer those questions for that person right then and there. I'll get the report. I'll be able to do some good work with that. And take care of the witnesses, and then you'll see the results, right? So that'll be like your mission. That's your payment, is you have to collect reports for us, which I think is fair. You get a free T-shirt. You get a free T-shirt for starting the chapter, and then take what you need. Basically, is if you raise $100, and you want $100, you keep $100. If you want to give T.E.S.A. $20, you give T.E.S.A. $20. It's up to you. We kind of just leave it open for paying it forward, I guess.
Very
cool. And the philosophy that comes from my old band days. Used to be in a band, played real hard. Matthew quit. I got married, right? So, and that was always the hard thing, is that the showrunners always wanted us to sell tickets, and nobody would buy, no one would play. And when they were set tickets, we would make no money. But when we started saying pay what you can, pay what you want, Some people will come in and they'll give me a pocket change, right? Yeah. Okay, cool, man. Come on in. That's great because that's better than nothing. And then some people will come in and be like, how much for this, right? So pay what you want. Really? Is $50 okay for me and $50 for her okay? Yeah, sure, of course, no problem, right? So that person's obviously used to paying $300 a seat, right? Yeah. So, you end up earning more, right? But you're not collecting the money for T.E.S.A. You're collecting the money for yourself or for whatever else projects you want to be doing with it. And that's why it's pay what you can and take what you need. And then in response, all you do is you funnel and you promote T.E.S.A. and you get people to report. And then what we do is we talk about it and we share it. We give a response to the director, and then the director can give a response to the people. And then once we get enough chapters going, then we're going to start doing a little, that gives me excuses to travel. And then I can come and meet you guys and all those fun, crazy things. Because I want to travel. But I need to, in order for me to justify spending the money, I need to know that there's someone seriously needs our help.
Yeah.
And I can't justify that with MUFON. Yeah. MUFON is just an archival, retired reporting agency, as far as I'm concerned. I'm active.
Yeah, and that's what the fun part is. And I know you as an investigator too, so you're pretty hard nosed, and you come in as with a skeptic's eye, which means somebody's going to have to produce some pretty good stuff before. And I use the word stuff instead of that other word before you. My challenge for you is to get you away from being a skeptic. It's like, I want to be able to say, see this gray guy? Look, Ryan.
Well, that's the thing, right?
Yeah, look at him. Look. Oh, this ghost? Yeah, he's standing right beside you. I want you to go, okay.
I'm also studying the phenomenon on a social level, too. It's either there's a bunch of things out there and I'm just not gifted and I can't resonate to all these things. Or at the same time, there might be a severe case of mental health in this one that we don't currently have any support groups for. So that's another thing with T.E.S.A. is there are some people out there that are right out to lunch and they don't know that, and we don't judge. And if we acknowledge that you are out to lunch instead of ignoring your emails or ignoring your report systems, we're going to treat you.
Yeah.
And then that's also research too, because I've also learned in some of my most significant cases, which I can't talk about because they belong to MUFON. That's another thing too. T.E.S.A. would be free. All I do is get permission from the witness and I'm good to talk about whatever I want as long as I get permission from the witness. Yeah. I've actually learned that most of my significant pieces of evidence and research that I've done have come from people suffering from some sort of mental illness. And it's not the mental illness that's causing it. It's the mental illness that's preventing them from being taken seriously and on a more credible level. But the evidence, if investigated properly, the mental illness doesn't matter.
Correct.
And in today's society, most people will look for that. That's the first stage when they try to discredit somebody, is check their mental health. Yeah. And if you have something wrong, therefore, you're crazy.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
That's unfortunate because as a paranormal investigator, I used to find that people would phone in or get a hold of us saying, there's some rattling going on upstairs. So you'd actually have to go there, and we would go in pairs because you don't want to ever go alone because you can get criticized or you could be a suspect in everything from theft to sexual assault. But you take a witness with you, and then the joke was you'd find out if there were actually squirrels in the attic or the person had squirrels in their attic. But you find that people who have mental health challenges can be haunted or experience things just like anyone else.
No, exactly. So, and that's why I want to study it. And I don't ask you those questions. It doesn't matter. As long as I find a link that references that you're not the only person in the world who's saying the things that you're saying, then there's enough for me to walk out on, right? Mm-hmm. I will walk out on that limb. That's all I need to do is fact check it. The idea is possible. Then once the idea is possible, now we have a location, trends, and all that other stuff. Then I go put boots on the ground and hopefully find an answer. Like I had a case of a Bigfoot sighting, which happened to be here in Ontario, out near Kidmount, which was where I happened to be traveling to. So I was lucky enough to put boots on the ground that next day. I went out there and I looked 2 days. 2 days I looked and tracked, and all I found were deer. Now that doesn't mean the Bigfoot wasn't there, but I put a good solid effort into trying to prove that theory possible. And even though Bigfoot wasn't there that day, I'm not saying Bigfoot doesn't exist. I'm just saying I was wrong place at the right time, or wrong place at the wrong time, because there's multiple Bigfoot encounters, right?
Oh yeah. Come out here to the Pacific Northwest, and you have to pull over and watch them cross the road like elk.
Well, start your chapter. Actually, I think we're going to call them sectors or divisions. I don't know. I don't want to say chapter. I need to change the word.
What is it? What we used to do in the RCMP? We had detachments.
Detachment, yeah.
Yeah, that's like the U.S. Marine Corps has detachments, and the Mounties had detachments. It goes back to old British and old. Yeah, it's
so it'll be just basically your township or detachment or something. It'll be just some cool branding. And that's the other thing too. Is I think the reason why people are really liking T.E.S.A is because not only does it sound like Tesla, but
I have one.
Yes, you do, and I want to ride in that.
Yeah, you go too fast for you, kid.
We'll take it to space.
Yeah, no kidding. It's bumper to bumper up there right now.
Sorry, I totally lost my train of thought. Distracted squirrel.
We were talking about...
Yeah. So starting a chapter or division or detachment, whatever we call it, when we announce it on June 1st, and get people reporting so I can start collecting data and then give me good information that I can justify hopping on a plane and coming out there, right?
Yeah, excellent. You've got to travel. And here's the thing that I'm doing with my podcast is that if you go to my website, if anybody likes the podcast anyway, that's the other thing. If you go to my website, theoracleswithjamestyson.com, and if you like what you're hearing, click on the Patreon link, which is kind of maybe what you should get to for your website, the Patreon link. And
so we actually have a Patreon.
Oh, sweet. And then if you like it, if you can kick in $3 a month or $36 a year or whatever that works out, don't make me do the math. What I do is when I get over 20 people, I'll draw 3 times a month. One is a psychic reading, one is a numerology chart, and one is past life regression, no matter where you are on the planet. We'll draw for those, and if your name gets picked up, I will get a hold of somebody where you live, and we'll pay for that for you. If I get to my magic number of 2,222 people signed up, I'll be drawing once a month to start with for a trip for 2, airfare, accommodation, and car rental. And mostly incontinent. Yeah, if you've got a diaper. No, if let's say you like UFOs, and you live in Ontario, I would fly you and one other person down to Alien Con in LA and pay for your accommodation and car rental and the entry. If you like ghosts, I'll fly you down to Gettysburg or the Preston Castle in Northern California and hook you up with the different tours. Not just one of the tours there. I'll put you on all the tours. I think there's 3 or 4 groups in Gettysburg, and you go on all of them. And when I hit my magic number, which I think at the beginning of the show it says 4,500, but I may drop down to 3,500. If we hit that number, I will send you to the UK, or I'll send you to Australia. If you like Bigfoot, I'll send you to a Bigfoot conference. I'll send you to a cryptid conference in Australia. I'll send you to a lovely haunted castle in Scotland. I will send you down to some really cool old in Portugal and Spain, where the Knights Templar got started up again, and some of their old castles, and send you on some paranormal tours down there. Also in Portugal is a really good UFO conference once a year, and so bounce people around. So what do you think of something like that?
I think that's absolutely amazing, and it's interesting because our Patreon account that I'm still in the works of figuring out how to charge, because again, it's not about money, but giving something in return, right? And it's along the same lines is, I'm going to be, we named it a sweepstakes and bonus content. So we're going to do everything we need to do as we plan on doing it. But if if you guys want some bonus stuff, such as raffling some stuff off, which I'm not going to mention now, but that'll be announced on June 1st as well. But I am going to raffle off tickets for something, which you can probably figure out what it is.
Yeah. I already figured it out. Because I'm a psychopath. Hold on, that's not right.
So, and it's the idea too, is just give a little something in exchange for something big. And you can quit your membership at any time, you just get in for the draw or whatever. It all balances out. And if anything, it validates what you're doing. And then, you're on the right path.
Yeah. And one of the things I'd like you to get is a really good microphone. So, hey,
well, that $20 a month we can invest into a microphone.
Yeah, just lease them at $20 a month. Some of the stuff that you were talking about is that pops up on your website. T.E.S.A approved investigation gear, and various tips on that. Now, you're a guy who does surveillance. That's what you do for your paying job, your work. Do you get into you're obviously a good resource for different camera equipment and different camera gears. The gears, my God, it's like I'm translating French into English. You've got the camera gears out there and to do that thing. But if somebody wants to know, hey, I really want to start off, whether it is going out and doing, looking for Bigfoot or for UFOs and things like that. Like you said, do not zoom in on your iPhone. So, take the original picture and then blow it up later. Let us
go. Yeah, right.
But you'd be a resource for people like that saying, hey, do you mind, Ryan, telling me this is the type of stuff I want to look for? Where would I get the best gear? Or should I defer to various television shows and see what the heck they're doing?
Yeah, no, I would definitely be a good resource for that because, so the T.E.S.A approved investigation gear, what you see there is actually a link to Ghost Stop. So if you go to the website, TESACAN.org, and you click that, what it'll do, it'll send a little adware to Ghost Stop. And if you do make a purchase, Ghost Stop is going to contribute a little bit to T.E.S.A for your purchase. Nice. But these are some of the equipments that that I purchased most of, that I'm testing and that I'm using, and I'm pretty happy with most of them. So, as I move forward, doing little informational videos, I'm going to be explaining, why I use them and how they work. I've already talked to Ghost Stop and just said, I'm not going to bullshit. If it's crap, I'm going to tell them it's crap, but I'm going to refer to something else on your website because there are a lot of things, right?
Yeah.
For example, but what I also have done and what I would like to do, so the K2, for an example, okay, K2 meter is known relentlessly for ghost hunting.
Yeah.
But what that is an electromagnetic field device, but it's meter, but it's designed and marketed for ghosts. If you look at the specific one, you think ghost, but what an actual EMF meter is a legitimate one or a real one is a bug sweeper, which I use in private investigating, and I actually have one of those. So what I would do is I wouldn't tell you to buy the K2 meter. I would tell you to buy this particular meter because it's what it's naturally designed for.
No,
I wouldn't tell you.
I'm going to argue that point.
Okay, let's go.
Yeah, okay. The thing is, the cheap made in China K2 EMF meter, they used to be $40, and I think you can buy them online for $100, but Ghost Stop has them for about $60 US. Yeah. But they're so cheap that the electromagnetic field has to be very, very strong for them to go off.
Okay.
If you hold that thing up to a human being, it's not going to go. If you get a really good one, a professional is an electro engineer, with somebody else actually looking for wires in a wall, it can give you a reading on your forehead or your heart.
Right. So this particular, I know where you're going at too. So that's why I test different ones. So I use 3. So I have the Rook, I have the K2, I have my other one too. And if all 3 of them are going off, and I kind of rule out it's a faulty device thing, right? But the particular device, which I haven't done the video for yet, again, I had to give MUFON the opportunity to work with me before I give out all my secrets. So now it's out. But the particular device that I have has a dialer on it. So you go into a room, you turn it on, it's almost like Supernatural when he pulls out the EMF meter and it's buzzing, right? That's because there's Wi-Fi in the room. And I take this dialer wheel down and I just bring it all the way down. And then I have my baseline immediately. And then I'm able to patrol that room and find a specific location. And then once I find that location, I dial it down a little bit more, then I'm able to pinpoint. And the reason for that, the way that device is designed for, is to look for hidden cameras or hidden listening devices, and like sweeping for bugs. It's literally a bug sweeper. But it still picks up electromagnetic field. So I would recommend that device because you can pinpoint to a smaller radius on where it is, right? Mm-hmm. Instead of walking around aimlessly, you turn it to full volume. Okay, there's something in this area. You turn it down. Okay, it's not in this room. Let's do our baselines in the room. Okay, we got a higher hit here, so it must be in this room. Dial it down. Let's focus. And then once you do your baseline that way, and you crank it all the way down, and the thing goes off like crazy, well, there's your control, right?
Yeah, we use the K2 EMF meter, the cheapo one, either the old black one or the gray ones. We will put those on a table and start asking questions. And then
those are good too because it's the timing, the reaction, right?
Yep.
And that's why I put 3 on the table. I'll put a tri-field, I'll put a K2, I'll put my rook down, and I'll put my bug zapper, my bug scanner on the table. And if they all go off, then, you can't blame the equipment.
Yeah. So you have the tri-field. That's the one you that's the one you're like the better one you were talking about.
So the tri-field I have through MUFON. Let's look at it's. I'm actually looking at this tri-field one that Ghost Stop has. I didn't realize they got a new one, which is partially why I bought a 3D printer. These guys do really good designs and 3D print their own stuff. So, anyways,
3D printer. Well, that's where all these come from.
Yeah. So I bought a 3D printer because what I want to do is I want to make some T.E.S.A merch. Obviously, it's cheaper to make it in house. Mm-hmm. And again, I want to keep the cost down to make it, if I do want to give it out for free, then it's not going to eat me at a house and home. But the idea too here is I do have a sketch artist that is part of T.E.S.A that can if you get a good enough description, I might be able to recreate that on a 3D printer, and then seeing is believing. Right, have a story is one thing, but have one of our sketch artists kind of sit down with you and actually draw what you saw, and then to create a 3D image might be give you a different perspective when you have it in your hands.
Taking your gear to a different level too, and I did a documentary where the only gear that I had was a little night vision camera. Basically, it was a game cam with a motion detector. I had a piece of string and a digital recorder, and that was it.
See, and that's the fun thing too about doing these investigations too, is I don't when I get the report, I already know my constants. I already know where the places are that are haunted or allegedly haunted. And I already have these experiments that I would like to use based on the theory of these devices to capture. So before I walk into the room without even being there, I already know what I'm going to set up. So it's not one of those like, okay, I'm here, what's going on? Like I already know what's going on before I show up. So by the time we show up, it's game time. Like we're ready. I brought the specific equipment. If I don't have it, I bought it, like whatever. Right. And, to do that as often as I'd like, obviously that's when it becomes a job. And that's why I'm working on saving, and then I'm just going like that way I can validate, when I do travel. If I can only travel once a month or once a year, whatever, at least I'm going to be out there. For those who do events and want me to speak at any of these symposiums and things like that, I don't usually charge a speaker fee unless you want to give me something. But my rule really is just get me there and get me back. That's it. I don't care if you put me on a train. I don't care if you put me in a motel instead of a hotel. Unless I'm with the wife, it'll have to be a hotel, not a motel. I don't care.
What, no tent? You'll send you to a Bigfoot exploration thing, and you have to live in the woods.
Yeah, but that's basically if you want me, right? But if I'm able to, if I got enough information and I'm saying I'm coming to you, then you pay nothing. I'm coming to you.
With me and my Patreon thing, that's another thing too. Is if I'd like to go along and actually turn it into a whole interview experience, but it doesn't mean I have to go. I could, if I draw a name and somebody's going from Florida to Gettysburg, they've never been before, and they're like, why not phone you up and say, hey, I've got 2 couples going to Gettysburg. Can you and the wife make it? And you go down there too, and kind of manage the thing, and and get what.
Well, that's where we have chapters. If we got chapter meetings, right? Your closest chapter or closest division or detachment. That's the word.
I love the detachment thing. Hey, if somebody is listening right now, which I think there's probably 4 people listening, and a cat, if they're interested in forming a detachment in wherever they live on the planet, where would they go to get a hold of you?
Well, for now, I want you to go to TESAcan.org.
TESAcan.org. And let's see, where's the write me a letter kind of thing? Do you have a...
It's on there somewhere through the tabs. Again, everything's nuts and bolts because I needed MUFON to see this first. It's all in stages. Oh, yeah, it's on the first page. It says T.E.S.A newsletter.
T.E.S.A newsletter, okay.
So you fill that out, or you can go to...
How about go to Facebook?
Yeah.
Send you a message on Facebook on either the...
No, if you click the support group, and it's down there at the bottom, it'll say contact us.
Oh, look at
so that's where you can make a request for any of these support groups, right? Spoiler alert, I will ask you to make a report first. You can't get to any of them unless you go through me, but that's to protect their identity as well. Yeah. But you can reach me there. So that way I can add you to the newsletter, and then the newsletter will announce the package on how you can become a chapter or detachment.
I'm going to be a detachment. Anyone else can be a chapter, but I'm going to be a detachment.
Well, see, I like detachment too. The problem I have with chapter is not that I'm not religious, but it's specific to Christianity. And again, in order to investigate everything, including religion, I want to use a word that represents everybody, not just one.
Oh, here the chapters are large motorcycle gangs, so that I have kind of detest. So
T.E.S.A detachment sounds badass,
Yeah.
I think that's it. T.E.S.A detachment. Penitang, which is where I am. That's number 1. Base Camp 1 or Ground Zero.
That's cool.
We'll brand it. But, again, all joking aside, this is a serious approach. There are people suffering. There are people who are reporting every single day, and they don't even get a phone call or anything like that. And I'm just doing my part on the way that I think it should be done. Plus, there is a support team that is behind me on this as well, and eventually, what's going to happen is I'm going to have someone run T.E.S.A as a whole, and I will no longer be on the front. I'll be behind it, and I'll just be part of it, right? Because T.E.S.A is
by itself, yeah.
Yeah, because T.E.S.A is you, T.E.S.A is me, T.E.S.A is everyone. T.E.S.A is a new name with no rules other than include everyone, coexist, right? So it can be whatever it is. And when we release our merch, you don't have to buy it, but buying it to wear it shows that the values that we're presenting are true to you, and that's how we change the world. We'll be the world we want to live in. At the same time, investigating this stuff.
Yeah, I think it's going to be cool. I think it's going to be a lot of fun getting out there and opening doors for people that have been kind of left on the outside, wondering what it is, where their information goes, and how it's treated.
That's the thing too. So my approach too is you tell me information so that way I can give you support. So that support could be me explaining to you, this is what you saw, and this is why. And then you learn something, and then you don't report that ever again. right? And then the next time, but I develop that relationship with you, and then the next report comes in, hey, this is something else. So instead of me training or getting new investigators to train new people, I'm just training people on what's really happening, right? And then once we give you the support that you need, and then that's it. We cure you. We try to help you. We give you that peace of mind that you're not alone. We believe you. And then at the end of the day, the data report that I release to the public gets taken by MUFON, gets taken by the government, gets taken by whoever needs it, and they make the opinions. We don't.
Yeah.
This is the consensus. This is the survey. This is what people are reporting, and this is where it is. I'm not saying it's Bigfoot. You can say it's Bigfoot. I'm not saying it was Jesus. You can say it was Jesus, right? Our position is to confirm and validate that you are legitimately experiencing something that cannot be explained.
It's the best way. I really think, even for somebody who's worked at MUFON for as long as you have, it's like everybody who's worked in an area where information comes into them and goes through their hands and out. After a while, you think of a better way of doing this. It's the growth and it's the natural evolution of that kind of that.
And that's where I'm at. And that's the thing. That's what makes me sad is I gave them the solution and they didn't take it. So now they're not taking it, and it cannot be proven. And of course, it's a conspiracy. But with everything that everyone else has ever said or assumed, it can now be assumed as well by the fact that I made them a hell of a business offer based on their strengths. With what everyone believed them to do is to be doing this for money. Well, if they're doing this for money and I made them a business offer and they declined the business offer, then what the hell are they doing it for, right? So now I'm stuck because I'm not calling them. I'm not saying it's a conspiracy, but I mean it's like when I did the ATIPs. So here's the thing: I did the ATIP request for a couple of UFO reports that I also monitor Trans-Canada. So every time a drone or a UFO report comes in, I do a Freedom of Information request. I have never, ever received tampered mail in my life except for asking for information about the UFOs. My mail has been opened and stamped and filtered and all this other stuff. And the thing is the reason why I did that is to follow the system, because a lot of people don't know how to do the system. But the Canadian government sends me back a document that's tampered, and then my response to that is like, this is why people think that there's a conspiracy. If you don't want the public to think that you are conspiring stuff, don't do stupid shit like this, right?
There is a conspiracy, though.
Well, of course, but then there's conspiracy with everything, right? For every conspiracy, you've got truth and lies, right? There'll be two lies to one truth in the conspiracy. Something's got to be believable in order for people to run with it, right? Once you get them hooked.
I was talking to Dr. Barry Taff, who is a parapsychologist. There has to be, because civilization as we know it would go for a poop if all of a sudden a UFO landed on the White House lawn. It would, people would lose their stuff.
One thing to determine that the technology exists is another one to determine who's piloting it. We find this weird phenomenon of a craft, and all of a sudden people assume that there's aliens in it. Well, we don't know that. It could be, with the technology today, it could be remote view operated. It could be a drone. It could be a human pilot. We don't know. But confirm, for me, it's like confirm that there's an object in the sky. Okay, perfect. And that's another thing too, roundabout when we come to the disclosure part, when I do the muster up the energy to actually start an experience or march, the question to the government isn't going to be, do you believe in aliens or are aliens among us? It's going to be like, Mr. Trudeau or whoever's in office at that time, are you aware that on this date at this time that this object was in our airspace? That's a loaded question, because he's got to answer that question. If he says yes, then there's confirmation, because I've already done my research to say that this is a legitimate, unusual object based on their characteristics, and then he knows that I'm onto them. Or he says no, and then I question, well, what are we paying taxes for? What is our army doing? How come you weren't aware of an unforeign object coming into our airspace? Because I can confirm that it was there, and you just told me it wasn't. So are we not safe? I'm not saying it's an alien. It could be Russia. It could be the United States. They have to, so it's asking the right question to the right person with the right information, and that's what I'm working towards. And that is only on Thursdays right now, because I gotta do the PI group 9 to 5 Monday to Friday. So
Yeah, and that's the thing, that as you continue with your life, which rumor has we still all need to do, you've got to let this thing take its natural evolution. And as people come in, and just get some volunteers come in and let it grow.
And what I do plan on doing, too, is using T.E.S.A as a training tool to train my security guards into private investigating. Because no matter what the subject is you got to investigate the same. So it's going to be a training tool for my staff, which means I'll have to pay them to do T.E.S.A at some point. That's okay, because it's a learning mechanism to grow everything together. And there's lots of things. There's lots of things to do. But at the end of the day, I'm an investigator through and through. I've investigated Chris Witowski's survey. I don't know if you know that name. Witowski. Chris Witowski has the Canadian UFO survey from ufology. He's released it every year for the last 30 years.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I got it. Yeah.
Yeah, so I just finished writing my second report on that. I've investigated him for 2 years privately, and then now coming out publicly. But the survey is massage data, and it's shit, and he's not accurate. And I called him out on it, tried to fix it. That's the whole reason why I created the UFO survey for MUFON Canada, so he could take it, so he could continue doing what he's doing with accurate data. And then he refused to do that. Why? Because he's making money off of it. So when people are making money and doing it for money, people lie. So again, T.E.S.A isn't, you don't have to pay to be on to T.E.S.A. If you want to contribute, it's great. But if you got nothing, then that's fine. We're doing it no matter what. With all the people that are coming together, the team that I'm building are all those like minds who have that philosophy that if we get something, great. If we don't, it's fine. Because we're already working, and we're already donating our own funds collectively to do what we want to do and be happy and be appreciative about it. Right? Good. And so my motto is if it doesn't land on my desk, I don't care. If it lands on my desk, well, we'll figure it out, right?
Yeah. You and I are cut from the same cloth. It's the game. The puzzle is the game. And if somebody gives us a puzzle, you really can't walk away from it. We have a bunch of questions. What can we do? I'm going to have to look into this. And taking the steps to find the answers. That's the fun part. Yeah, a lot of times we get the answers first. We'll get the answers. We get the puzzle kind of, here's what we saw. What happened? So you go, okay, you've given me the answer. Now I want to find out how you got to that point to where you said you saw this thing, whether it was up or down or sideways. It's, let's dig into it a little bit further. It's the puzzle. I love it. That's what I liked about police work. It's, you're given a puzzle and off you go.
But also the next level to that with my survey is to measure the puzzles, right? To find the constants. So in order to figure out this phenomenon of ETs, I would want to measure the trends, 90% of them say that they're 6 feet tall, or a few of them say that they're 2 feet or 8 feet. So I'm going to ignore the 2 feet and 2 feet to whatever. And I'm going to focus on the 6 feet. So when that report comes in and says he was 6 foot tall, you're like, okay, this one is a person of interest because it fits the criteria. It's the MO of an alien, because they're not all going to tell it the same. They're not all going to be affected the same. But every single story has a constant.
When I travel down to the Alien Con in LA in June, I go with psychic Skeeter Wellhouse, who's not only she's an experiencer of many different anomalies. She does that hypnotherapy into areas that, that lost time. I thought I saw a UFO and then I woke up at home. Well, she'll go back in and tell you what you saw in that time or what you experienced. She and I, for free, will travel anywhere on the planet. And when I say for free, I stay home, she stays home, and she remote views into your house. And we'll tell you, do you have a ghost or a wandering spirit or something a little darker or something a lot brighter, or the things that you see in your bedroom late at night, are they something from a person from 100 years ago, or is it an alien?
Would you be, interested in a science experiment? I guess, for to turn me skeptic into believer, like if you were to control the variables and then set it up. And once I understand if you make a report about remote viewing, then I'll be able to investigate it. And then what I would do is I would probably propose that we test the ability to see if you are in fact experiencing what you consider to be remote viewing, or it might be something else. But at the same time,
well, Skeeter can actually show up in your house, walk in the front door, and tell you the stairs go up, your living room's on the left, your couch is over there, it's got a picture hanging above it. She'll see.
Well, yeah. So if she's willing to do that now the intent is not to debunk, but the intent is to to authenticate or reinforce.
Yep.
I'd be interested in that. As an example, like Priscilla, she's my wife, and she feels things. I don't understand how, I just know. And the reason why I come to know is because I've done investigative packages and I've dug up and researched and information that I know that she doesn't know how to get. I never told her. I'll spend 12, maybe 16 hours on this, and then I'll bring her to this place and be like, okay, so apparently this place is haunted. Let me know how you feel. The next thing you know, she goes directly to all the spots and says, yeah, something happened here. I don't know what. Something happened here. I don't know what. And in my mind, I'm losing it because I'm like, okay, like I knew that from this and this and that. But for some reason, but she doesn't have the backstory. So to me, I'm like, okay, so now I'm invested in this phenomenon. I obviously don't have this sense yet, but the sense exists. So I want to study that further.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I definitely do that. We would definitely do that.
Now, does that mean it's alien? No. Maybe it means there's no aliens. Maybe it's us. Maybe we're just more smarter than we're led to believe. It could all be us.
Yeah, could be. I've got, right now, I've got a room in the basement of my house that, from a recent guest, I have somehow, plus I had a vortex open in the room directly below where I'm sitting now. It's now closed. But somehow I have indentured servants, slaves, and very old English kind of Irish English kind of people in the basement that came from what she believes was Quebec, Ontario. And it's like, how the hell did they get here? And we're thinking, was the vortex kind of just opened up as a mirror of something that used to be in Eastern Canada? And why are they, quote unquote, trapped in the room? So she and another psychic are working on trying to figure out how to get them the heck out of here and back to where they belong. But when she does remote viewing in that room, she walks close to it and she starts coughing to the point where she can't get into the room because there's smoke. It's like something's burning and she can't get in there to deal with them. So they've been working on this for about a week.
Huh. So you know what? And this is like no bullshit. Like if the phenomenon exists, right? Mm-hmm. There's a lot of people who say, like, to me, if it's free, that's a plus. Anyone who charges for it, I'm automatically like, nah, it's crap. It's a game, right? But if you're willing to do it for free for the purpose of science, right, then I'm more willing to accept. There's been a missing persons case in my area for a long time. It's getting brought up all over the place. But if I'm able to, I might be interested in digging that case up again, no pun intended. Yeah. But if I could, I guess, authenticate the resources per se, and we're able to use that on an academic level to solve the unsolved mystery, that would be evidence on a catastrophic level.
Well, here's the thing. There's a guy out in your area, a guy named Robbie Thomas.
Okay.
I think he's written a book. There's a couple of TV shows about him. If the police get a hold of him and say, hey, do you think you can help us with this? He'll do it for free.
Right.
And if the family does it, I think he might charge the family, but he's crazy accurate. And if I can give you some information on him. If not, we can go with Skeeter.
Well, it's just an idea. It's all in theory, too, right? I got to get caught up on the 40 cases that I got from T.E.S.A. and probably the 60 million that are coming in right now, thanks to you. So. Yeah.
What we'll do, we'll carry this conversation on. I will get a hold of you, and I can tell you right now, if anybody listening thinks they have a ghost in their if they got squirrels in their attic, or they have something going bump in the night, or they've experienced something, get a hold of me. Go to my website, theoraclesofjamestyson.com, send me an email, and I'll get a hold of you. And the thing is, I will talk, and this is how this works, Ryan. This is interesting. If you've got something going on, Skeeter doesn't know about it. What you and I do is I talk to you. I do basically I interview you over the phone. Yeah. And when I determine, there might be something there, I will then get Skeeter. I will get a hold of Skeeter, bring her in on the phone call. So all three of us are talking. Skeeter she'll take meditate for a second, take a deep breath, and show up in your house. And then start describing the house to you. And now I haven't asked you what your house looks like. No. She will describe your house to you, identify where you're sitting, usually a couple of other spirits.
That's why I wanted to do the experiment, because I would do my own investigation on myself, because I know that you're an ex-retired police officer, and I know what can be traced. I know what can be found. So I'd have to set up a certain amount of variables once I understand what's possible. I don't want to be like, hey, how many fingers are behind my back? Because that might not be how it works. Once I understand how...
there's 1 out of 5 chance she's going to get it right. Hold on.
So then we do it 5 times.
So what you do is, if you've got in remote viewing, now I know Dr. Barry Taff used to teach it at the parapsychology unit in UCLA back in the 70s up until the 80s. They taught it to the CIA, FBI. They taught remote viewing. In fact, they were doing remote viewing on a nuclear submarine that had the Trident nuclear submarines back in the day. That was so restricted when they did the remote viewing. The FBI or CIA came in and wanted to do remote viewing. They gave them a location, and they gave such an accurate description of the Trident nuclear sub, and it was tape recorded. The recordings all had to be removed from UCLA, from the people involved in it. That's how accurate it was. They said, oh, crap, we'll just take those. But remote viewing has been used a lot. There's a guy in Seattle, Washington, who actually, ex-Seattle PD, he teaches it at night school. You can take a remote viewing class at community college. So,
I'd be willing to try that.
It is actually a very cool thing. Now, when
the other thing. Sorry, go ahead.
No, when Skeeter does this, a lot of times, because if she's coming it probably won't happen with you or me if we set something up. Ghosts, spirits from the neighborhood know she's coming, and they all show up at your house. And she basically gets them to stand outside until she's done, and then she crosses them over, because that's what we do. We cross them over for free. If you've got a poltergeist activity, which is usually human caused, you're a bit of an antenna for causing all this energy. That's a little bit different. If it's a dead person that hasn't moved on, we'll find out. We'll get their name, approximate time of death, something you can actually go into the archives and research, and move on from there and cross them over, unless you want them to stay.
If you notice on the support page, the reason why I have myself as an investigator and nobody else is because my academics as a private investigator, I should be the only one investigating, because I do it for a living. Yeah. Leslie is the regression hypnotherapist. Perfect. And the reason why she's on the T.E.S.A team is because she does that for a living. So by doing it for a living means that she's got a lot to lose by saying, I believe in this and believe in that.
Correct.
Right? I can lose my company by telling the public saying I believe in ghosts and aliens. That's been a struggle of mine forever. But at the same time, I'm trying to prove that, trying to set the example. Now, having said that, if you look at the T.E.S.A support team, there's a lot of names missing. There's a lot of divisions missing. And the goal here is to find the best of the best in all these aspects. So I don't have a remote viewer. So, I mean, if you could do some sort of experiment where it can be convinced from a logical point of view, unskeptical, that
works. Yeah.
A remote viewing works, and you have some sort of credentials, that you can lay on the line to say that I'm not some average Joe who just believes who took a college course, like I'm doing this for a living. Mm-hmm. And again, something like that. Then we slap you up on the support team, and then. And then we have this academic team. So once we understand and that is part of the support. And my job is to determine which support is needed And at the same time, that becomes a secondary investigation. Is my estimation or my understanding of how the support is needed, the proper support for the situation, did it help? No, it didn't. So next time I encounter something like that, I'm going to suggest this support and see if that makes a difference. Mm-hmm. So there's experiments within experiments within experiments. But at the end of the day, what matters is that along the ride, the experiencer has been treated with the best service they could ever get, and they leave, it's done right,
Yeah, and
we get the data, and we treat the people as people, not as stories.
Yeah, and that's the most important thing for me too, is to treat the client. It's client based. The experiencer has to be, has to come out of that, first of all, feeling that somebody listened to them, somebody took their story, believed in it to the point of actually trying to help them dig down into why this happened and move on, and
might not have the answers, but it helps, and they help because people are asking for help. You need to give them the help. Determining what help to give them is a different ball game, but it's all part of it, right?
Perfect. And I hear a bunch of Mounties in the background coming, so which means it's about time for me to let you go. And
awesome.
For our listeners that tuned in, we've been talking to the late Ryan. No, I'm kidding. We've been talking to Ryan Stacey. He's a paranormal researcher. He is out in. Here we go.
Penetang.
What's that?
Penetang machine.
Penetang machine. Which is an Irish name. No, I'm kidding. What kind of did you have? Was it the Ojibwe Indians in your neighborhood years ago? The Ojibwe,
Métis or something, Ojibwe or something. Yeah, this is a native town.
No kidding. A name like that? Holy cow! Yeah. Cool neighborhood. Very haunted, most likely, because a lot of stuff happened in that area. But again, Ryan Stacey, investigative journalist and UFO paranormal researcher, founder of T.E.S.A, the Experiencer Support Association. Please go give his website a look, TESACAN.org. That's TESACAN.org. And if you want to start a detachment of your own, give him a shout on his Facebook page. Look up Ryan Stacey. Look up the Experiencer Support Association on Facebook. Send him a message. Give him a bit of your background. Hopefully you got some investigative background or are just overly interested and have some time to put into something like this, because it is going to be time consuming when things start ramping up. And as I've been told,
I can't do it alone.
What's that?
Can't do it alone.
No, you can't. And the more eyes out there, the more hands, more boots on the ground, as it were, the better. Ryan, thank you very much for dropping by and sharing T.E.S.A with us today.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Night, and I live in the absence of light, and my shadow has life of its own, watching you while you sleep all alone.
All right, that's it. Let's roll. And hey. Let's be careful out there.
Far over the snow, what are those voices? They sing as they go. What are those voices? Look up for the mountain. Because somebody better hide through the hail, like a pack of angry wolves on gun, you are done. Throw your gun away. Here comes the bounty to get the man you're after. No!